Saygıdeğer katılımcılar.
Distinguished participants, good afternoon. My name is Özlem Emre from the Development and Investment Bank of Turkey in wholesale banking, treasury, and financial development of financial institutions. I'm Deputy Director General. As Development and Investment Bank of Turkey distinguished participants, we have been implementing the Formal Employment Creation Project Grant Program, which is financed by the European Union under the Facility for Refugees in Turkey and implemented by the Development and Investment Bank of Turkey under the management of the World Bank. I'd like to welcome you all to this information and presentation session on my behalf and on behalf of my bank. I'd like to thank you very much for your time and for your attendance for this information session. We have been working on this project for more than 2 years. We have the loan and grant components, which make us very excited. We are going to focus on grant component. We will present the details of the grant component, but of course, we'd like to find important solutions to important problems of Turkey through a grant program. That's why it's important for us: employment of women, employment of refugees and migrants. We hope that we can find some solution-based approaches at the end of this project. When this project is completed, the outputs and deliverables of this project, I believe, will be very useful for Turkey and contribute to Turkey. And this is just the first of a series of information sessions we will organize. We will organize 5 online meetings and 1 physical meeting. But for the grant applicants, those who are interested in grant program cannot access us only through this channel. We created a website, a platform for application. From KAIS, you can apply, and at www.kais.org is the website that we highly recommend you to use it actively, because on that website you can find all detailed and further information about the grant components, application guideline, frequently asked questions, and you can even find the presentation that we will make today on that website. I hope that this meeting will be fruitful and successful for each and every one of you. Without further ado, I'd like to give the floor to my colleagues in the project implementation team. Over to you, Ayşegül Hanım. Thank you very much, Özlem Hanım. Distinguished participants, my name is Ayşegül Çerçi. I'm working at the Development and Investment Bank of Turkey. I'm responsible for development cooperation and wholesale banking. I'm the director of this unit, and I am in the project implementation team of the Formal Employment Creation Project that we manage. I'll give the floor to Naz Karabal and Eren Düşkün that are responsible for the project, and they will provide you information about the project, and then we will try to answer your questions as much as we have time. As underlined by Özlem Hanım, you can find relevant information at kais.com.tr. From kais.org, from our project's website, you can find further information and relevant documents, and you can submit your application on kais.org. So without further ado, before the presentation, I'd like to remind you of the fact that you can submit your questions in the Q&A part throughout this meeting, and also there is a simultaneous interpretation service provided throughout this meeting, and if you like, you can follow the meeting in English. Now, I'd like to hand over to Naz Karabal to present the project to you. Thank you very much.
Teşekkür ederim Ayşegül
Thank
Hanım.
you very much, Ayşegül Hanım. Distinguished participants, I'm from Project Implementation Team. My name is Naz Karabal. Together with Eren Bey, we are going to present you information about the Formal Employment Creation Project Grant Program. First of all, I'd like to make a few reminders of you. I'd like to make some important announcements. This presentation includes the Turkish translations of the grant program application guideline and is annexed at the link address kais.org, and also the following link, as you can see. And also, it has been drafted for information purposes for potential applicants. In case of any conflict between this presentation and the grant program application guideline and its annexes, the English version of the guideline application guideline annexes will be binding. And this presentation has been drafted with the financial support of the European Union. The content is under the responsibility of the Development and Investment Bank of Turkey and does not necessarily reflect the views of the European Union. Here is the presentation. First, I will describe the project. I will present this permanent employment creation project and also project component. To be followed by Eren Bey to present the grant component and the conditions and general framework of grant component. The objective of the formal employment creation project sub-grant program is to enhance the conditions for formal job creation by firms operating in growing economic sectors with high employment potential and located in selected 24 provinces with high incidence of the Syrians under temporary protection for the benefit of Turkish citizens and refugees. The project will provide a financial assistance and also skills required by the firm to improve and enhance the conditions for formal job creation and formal employment. And also this project has a total budget of 396 million euros provided by the FREED program. We have three components. The first one is with the guarantee of the Ministry of Treasury and Finance. It is the loan of the World Bank, and the credit contract was signed on the 1st of June 2020 and it was enforced on the 25th of September 2020, and now it is available, it is active, and beneficiaries started using it. And the second component is the grant provided by the Formal Employment Creation Project, and the contract was signed on the 22nd of February 2021, entered into force on the 6th of August 2021. Grant program is active and we will start delivering it in 2022. The third component is technical and institutional support, followed by supported by loans and grants. On this part, you can see our components: loan, grants, and components and sub-components. The first component is the World Bank loan. Sub-loans under Part 1.A of the project is in the form of direct loans, 125,894,000, and we also have another Apex loan, which has two parts. And under technical and institutional support, we have the loan. This is related to section 3.C, and the sub-component equals to 600,000 euros, and this is going to be used for capacity building for the sub-grant implementing agency, and also from FREED, under grant program supported by FREED, 4 million euros is allocated for supporting our bank, and also been allocated for grant program. Section 3B, 3E are related to grants. 5.9 million is the amount of this grant program for the beneficiary skills development, capacity building, and also for the implementing agency. Capacity building support will be provided through this budget. For all the components of the project, there are important implementation principles which I'd like to address now. All the components of the project are implemented in accordance with the World Bank environmental and social standards. The environmental and social standards of the World Bank, and also our bank's environmental and social management framework, and the project's environmental and social commitment plan are some of those principles. Stakeholder engagement plan, labor management procedures, and other relevant World Bank and TKYB policies and regulations cover the environmental and social management framework. Under technical and institutional capacity building support, support will be provided to improve the institutional capacities of beneficiary companies and implementing financial institutions and the skills of newly employed persons. Under this scope, sub-loan user firm, participating financial institution, sub-grant beneficiary firm, and TKYB, which is the implementing agency, will benefit from this component. Another important point of this project is as follows. Women inclusive companies are very important under this project. As you can see on the application rate of the grant application, women inclusive companies are scored higher for evaluation. So what we mean by women inclusive companies, they have at least one female shareholder with properly documented representation and management powers, or have at least one female senior manager, or have a female representation of at least 25% in the middle management, or employs women at a higher rate than the average observed in the relevant sector. Now I'd like to talk about the loan component of this project. This component covers direct and OPEX lending. There are two sub-components. Under direct lending, TKYB is providing investment and working capital loans directly to eligible large enterprises equal to or more than 250 employees. Large enterprises should be financially viable and already have a consolidated record of job creation and want to expand their business and generate markets. Maximum sub-loan amount for a sub-project is 5 million euros and maximum 15 million euros for an eligible firm. More information can be requested from TKYB Corporate Banking and Project Finance Department, as you can see the link on the slide, and you can submit your applications based on this information. For OPEX lending, TKYB is providing subsidiary financing loan to eligible participating financial institutions to on-land SMEs operating in project provinces, employs less than 250 employees for their investment and working capital needs. Sub-loans are provided for eligible SMEs to create formal employment. Maximum sub-loan amount for a sub-project is maximum 3 million euros and maximum 6 million euros for an eligible firm. There are 6 participating financial institutions, leasing institutions in Part 1B. These are Yapı Kredi Leasing, Vakıf Leasing, Garanti Leasing, QNB Finance Leasing, AK Leasing, and İş Leasing. More information, further information can be requested from the participating financial institutions regarding OPEX lending. At this point, I'd like to hand over to Eren Bey to provide further information about the objectives of the grant program and the content and scope of this grant program. Thank you. Thank you, Nazan. Hello, good afternoon. I'm from Project Implementation Unit. My name is Eren Güç, as mentioned by Nazan. I'd like to provide you further information about the grant program. First of all, I'd like to give information about the main characteristics and features of grant program. Of course, in the following slides, you will find the relevant further information, but as a general framework, the beneficiary companies will benefit from sub-grants based on the condition that they will create employment for refugees and Turkish nationals, and they should have a valid and eligible work plan for 18 months. And also, the employment records to be presented by the companies will be cross-checked in line with the FSI reports periodically in order to verify their eligibility to the requirements of employment. And on the other hand, apart from the list of the activities that are not financed by the World Bank and TKYB, there will not be any limitation to the sectors, and the companies will be able to have access to lending and grants under this project. And the women inclusive enterprises are very important. We are going to encourage the participation of these companies in the evaluation rates. I'm going to tell you that these women inclusive companies can have greater scores. On the grant program, around 770 companies will be supported, and 255 of them are expected to be women inclusive companies. Of course, these are just indicative numbers. This may vary depending on the nature and the number of applications, and also sub-grant beneficiary companies are expected to create around 9,000 jobs, and 700 of them are expected to be women inclusive. And also for sub-grant beneficiaries, capacity building activities will be further provided. As regards the objective of the grant program, you can see the overall objective of the program. So the applications should be submitted in line with the overall objective of the program. The overall objective of the program is to enhance the conditions for formal job creation by firms operating in growing economic sectors with a high employment potential and located in selected 24 provinces with a high incidence of Syrians under temporary protection for the benefit of Turkish citizens and refugees. Beneficiary firms will receive the grant conditional and formal employment creation of Turkish citizens and refugees, including the beneficiaries of the ESSN. And regarding the information on the selected 24 provinces, we have further slides, but you can find relevant information on our website as well. There are two priorities of this program. Under the applications, you can give priority to any of them or both of them. The first priority is creating and increasing formal employment for refugees and Turkish citizens. And the second priority is to create and increase formal employment for women. There is a rationale behind that program. Why do we provide this program? Why do we have these lots of proposals in the selected provinces of the project? Limited employment creation and formal employment opportunities in the project provinces exist, and also there is a limited financing opportunities for firms in provinces where refugees are concentrated. There are social and labor market problems affecting both refugees and Turkish citizens, and there is a need to facilitate the transition of emergency social safety net ESSN beneficiaries to formal employment, and there is a low awareness of the employability of Syrians. These are the rationale behind this grant program. As I said before, these are the selected project provinces. There are 24 project provinces selected under this project, and these are the provinces heavily and densely populated by refugees. That's why these provinces were selected. In the southeastern part of Turkey and also southeastern Mediterranean, Central Anatolia, Ankara, Konya, in the Aegean region, in Denizli, Izmir, Manisa, and Tekirdağ, Istanbul, Kocaeli, Sakarya, Bursa, and the Marmara region are covered by this project. The budget is 70 million euros. And the applications can be received from the small-scaled, medium-scaled, and large-scaled enterprises. So small-scale companies employ 1 to 49 employees, and medium-scaled enterprises have 50 to 249 employees, and large-scale companies employ 250 and more than 250 employees. And so for the first category, 14 million, for the second category, 22 million, and for the large-scale companies, 33.6 million euros will be provided. If small-scale enterprises apply, depending on their type of enterprises, they will be ranked, and small and medium-scaled enterprises will not be ranked in the same way. So small-scaled enterprises will apply for the quantile of 14 million euros. And so, based on these enterprises, you can see the minimum and maximum top grant amount. It starts from 15,000 and reach to 300,000 euros. And the requested amount cannot be less than 20% and more than 20% of the maximum grant amount. And there is a lot of information, of course. To give an example, for a small-scale company, when it requests 15,000 euros, the total budget, lower budget should be 24,000 euros. And these are based on certain assumptions, and if a company requests 15,000 euros, should provide a co-funding of 6,000 or 6,000 euros. I'll tell you later about the human resources cost. Should be between 70 to 90% of the total eligible costs. It means that if there is a total budget of 21,000 euros, minimum 15,000 and maximum 19,000 euros should be the human resources cost of that project. As you can see on the right-hand side, for a small-scale company enterprise, it was based on the maximum amount of support. So the total budget is expected to be 64,000, and human resources cost is expected to be 45,000 euros. It should be from 70 to 90% of eligible cost. I'm not going to give you details about this, but the same rules apply for the medium-scale enterprises as well. A minimum support amount is the same, but the limits are different. Small, medium, and large-scale enterprises, minimum and maximum support amounts are different. Rates are fixed, but the amounts may vary. Another important example is that if a large-scale enterprise applies, the support amount ranges from 40,000 to 300,000, and also from 30, according to the scale of 30 to 70% of the total eligible cost. We have the sub-project budgets, as you can see on this slide. As regards eligibility criteria, I mentioned about this eligibility criteria, but I'll give you further details. Eligibility of the applicant, who can apply, eligibility of sub-project sector, environmental and social risk category, duration, location of the sub-projects, and number of proposals, and eligibility of costs, which costs are eligible, which are ineligible. Eligibility of the applicants who can apply. Applicant firm must be a legal person, which means that company should be joint stock, limited liability, collective, ordinary, limited partnership, and limited partnership companies, which can apply, who are eligible to apply, and the self-employed companies are not eligible. Applicant should be a small firm, medium firm, or a large firm. You can see the limits below 50 employees, from 1 to 49 employees, and 50 to 249 employees, or equal or above 250 employees. According to the number of the employees, they should support this information with relevant documentation during the application, and so they should have their category accordingly. It must be fully privately owned enterprise. Publicly owned businesses are not eligible. Cooperatives and non-governmental organizations, non-profit organizations are not eligible for this call. There are a lot of questions. Should they be officially registered in Turkey, or what should be the place of application? Our priority is that the companies must be officially registered in Turkey and must have facilities and should be able to implement these sub-projects in 24 provinces. Relevant activities must be implemented in these 24 provinces by these companies, and the applicant must have been established at least 2 years prior to the date of call for proposals notice. On the 17th of December 2021, this call for proposal was noticed, and at least 2 years before that, these firms must have been established. They must not have any previous or paid or non-paid or overdue liabilities or overdue social charges and tax payment without exceeding legal limits of prevailing legislation or defaulted loans. There are a lot of questions about that, and we also gave the answers to these questions, and we tried to clarify these questions at this point. If a company has any tax debt, but there is a restructuring for that, and if they can submit the relevant documents, they will be eligible as well. And also, they must be directly responsible for the preparation and management of the sub-project. They must not act as an intermediary. They must not receive or must not have received a loan within the scope of the loan component of the formal employment creation project. Eligibility of activities, sub-projects, and which sub-projects are eligible, which are ineligible. And there is no sectoral restriction as I said, but they should be in line with the environmental and social commitment plan of the project and environmental and social standards of the World Bank, and they should not be included in the exclusion list of the TKYB. And the relevant information about this exclusion list, you can find the relevant information and that list on our website and also website of the project. We can receive any project application in any area on condition that they are not in the exclusion list. It may be capacity building, infrastructure investment, a new investment, modernization or renovation or retrofittation or service investments. It seems that we don't have any restriction to any sector except the exclusion list. In any area, in any sector, they can submit their applications. For the sub-projects, I'm going to tell you the details later. We have the environmental and social evaluation So, according to risk categories determined by the World Bank and implemented by our bank, they will be subjected to the evaluation. Those who are under category B and category C of our bank will be eligible. And the duration of the sub-projects can have a duration of 18 to 21 months, but it is expected to create and maintain formal employment for 18 months. We receive a lot of questions at this point. Maybe we should clarify that. In just 18 months, in that business plan, there may be some employees who may resignate or who may leave job. What will happen then? So the commitment plan should be implemented in the same way to replace those employees. And also each applicant firm as a legal entity can submit only one sub-project proposal within the scope of the call for proposal. Second application will not be eligible. Location of the sub-projects is selected 24 provinces. As regards the eligibility of costs, in general, these are the general rules. All costs should be incurred by the beneficiary within the scope of the sub-project budget approved by our bank. And also that the costs must be generated during the implementation period of the sub-grant before the contract is signed, and after the contract, the costs and activities will not be eligible. For that reason, the costs should be reasonable, justified, and clearly explained, verified, and financially sound, especially with regard to economy and efficiency, and also should comply with the effective management principles. Eligible costs should be based on actual costs verified by supporting documents, such as invoices, payrolls, bank statements, and etc. But what I mean at this point is the market research documents, and we are going to mention about them in the other slides. And the project budget will be prepared in euro currency. The costs should be compatible with the general and specific objectives of the sub-project and should be included in the sub-project budget. No lump sum costs will be considered as eligible except for indirect costs. Now I'll give you details of the eligibility of costs. The first priority is the cost of human resources under this program. Human resources budget heading can consist of minimum 70% and maximum 90% of the total eligible costs of the project. For the newly employed employees, the cost will be considered as eligible. The existing employees' cost will not be eligible to a sub-grant program and to achieve a balanced formal job creation between Turkish and refugees. The sub-grant program aims to achieve a balanced formal job creation between Turkish citizens and refugees. The percentage of additional women employment and additional refugee employment over additional total employment. I'm going to talk about the additional total employment and additional refugee employment, additional women employment percentages. They will be taken into consideration at the evaluation process. And also under the eligible direct costs, working capital costs will be eligible, which cover raw materials, ancillary materials, components, hub assemblies, etc. Utilities such as electricity, internet, phone, water, and fuel maintenance costs. Working capital under eligible direct costs, fixed investment costs. These are the costs needed for new instruments and expansion modernization of existing facilities, and covers multiple sub-project budget items such as machinery, equipment, vehicle, furniture, computer equipment, installation costs, etc. Small-scale construction work and ancillary service facilities can be up to 5% of the total eligible direct costs in the sub-project budget. And also major construction work costs, except for the small renovations for installation of the necessary equipment machinery, are not eligible. Costs of software and related IT licenses, other various investment expenditures, used second-hand, refurbished, repaired machinery equipment are not regarded as eligible costs. The budget items cannot reference any specific brand, model, or origin while preparing the sub-grant budget at the proposed stage. Under eligible direct costs, we have other costs and services, expenses related to consulting, publication, research, audit, evaluation, visibility actions, promotional activities, work permit fees, other employment-related legal fees, etc., incurred during the implementation of the sub-project are indicated under this budget heading. Activities related to procurement of a service are expressed in this budget heading only if the entire service is eligible. Indirect costs. The indirect costs incurred in carrying out the action may be eligible for flat rate funding, but the total must not exceed the percentage of the estimated total eligible direct costs stated in the respective section. We have administrative costs, incidental expenditures. They have a fixed rate of 3% maximum. It can only compose 3% of the total direct eligible cost, and there are certain requirements and conditions for the use. And you can find the details in the application guideline. Ineligible costs, that's debt service charges, provisions for losses or potential future liabilities, costs declared by the beneficiaries and financed by another sub-grant or work program receiving European Union, including European Development Fund grant, credits and grants to third parties, taxes, including value-added taxes, customs and import duties, or any other charges, purchase, rent or leasing of land and building, fines, financial penalties, and expenses of litigation. And also, budgets must be presented and submitted in euros, but if they have conversion costs and exchange losses associated with any of the euro accounts related to sub-projects, will be ineligible. Contributions in kind, any leasing, depreciation costs are ineligible. Costs incurred by those other than the beneficiary from vehicle purchase or rental costs for personal use, costs of the preparatory work before the project starts, and other activities before the start of the projects. The cost of the relevant activities of consultancy are ineligible, and other activities unrelated to the sub-project are not eligible.
Very briefly, I talked about the eligibility criteria, but where can you find the detailed information? So I would like to mention www.kayis.org, the grant program website. So the project webpage and application documents are available in Turkish and English. The application guideline, application form, and business plan can also be downloaded in Arabic. So the application guideline, application form, and business plan and other application documents can be downloaded from the Call for Proposals tab on the website. Applications can be made by accessing the KAYIS online application platform from the application tab on the web page. So if you have any questions about this, you can also contact us using the contact details that will be provided at the end. So once the slides are over, I would like to show you the website to show you what is accessible and what is available. So it is really important to take a look at the website. So when you log into this website, you can log in with the one-time code sent to your mobile phone. So this is how you can apply. So this is the code that will be given to you and you will be using it. And with all the supporting documents, templates for the supporting documents are available in the KAYIS platform. So the application process. So there are some application documents that I would like to talk about. So the first one is Annex A, application form and business plan. It will be prepared through the KAYIS platform. So this is digitally made available. So this is a complete digital application that we are talking about. So Annex B, sub-grant budget. It will be prepared through the KAYIS platform. The rules to be followed in the budget are detailed in the application guideline. And if the relevant rules are not followed, the system does not allow the application to be completed. So there are some rules, there are some rates, and there are some important rules that need to be complied with. And if they are not followed, the system does not allow the application to be completed. So Annex C, which is a very important one, sub-grant employment plan and performance indicators, it will be prepared through the KAIST platform. The full and correct entry of existing and planned additional employment data will be the basis for the evaluation of the application. Annex D, the procurement plan, it will be prepared through the KAIST platform. All the procurement items under the sub-project budget, except human resources, administrative costs, and incidental budget and utilities under working capital, should be included in the procurement plan. So except for these, all of those sub-project budget should be included in the procurement plan, and this is an element which is facilitating the process. Annex E, logical framework matrix. The draft accessible on the platform or website should be uploaded to the relevant section of the platform using the Word format. So supporting documents. So these are provided in the application guidelines, but I would like to walk you through these. Well, some of the documents are not compulsory, but these are already indicated in the application guidelines, and this may vary according to the type of the applicant. So to walk you through, declaration by the applicant with wet signature. So in addition to that, declaration of consent to information sharing, declaration about the statement of no finalized seizure transactions, and also a certificate of activity, which you can access through the link provided. Certificate of activity provided at most 3 months before the application date. Capacity report obtained from TKYB. A lot of questions were received, but this is for those companies which must receive a capacity report, which are under the scope. And if you're not in the scope for a requirement of capacity report, then you don't need to submit that. Up-to-date trade registry gazette showing company address and trade registry information, signed and stamped, share ledger showing the ownership structure, and also copy of identity card, passport, if not Turkish citizen, and certificate of residence, tax signboard by Revenue Administration, latest withholding tax, monthly premium service statement showing the number of employees of the applicant, the latest SSI statement submitted to the Revenue Administration, and then the applicant's corporate income tax return, and also the provisional tax return, audit reports, and audit reports produced by approved external auditor. So these are also important documents to underline. So authorization or other licenses necessary for the implementation of the sub-projects. So if we continue with the supporting documents, document on debt status of the applicant issued by tax authorities and social security institution received no more than 15 days before the application date. Electronic letter with barcode, document showing that debt has been structured should be submitted. And also for other items, except for the HR, there is a need for market research documents. So when there is a need for market research, the market research documents taken no more than 2 months before the date of application, and the details have been already provided in the application guidelines. CVs of the project case staff in the format available on the KAIST website and KAIST platform, and also you can see exclusion list statement. The template is made available on KAIST website and KAIST platform. Workplace opening and operating permits, environmental impact assessment decision. So if positive, if out of scope, if environmental impact assessment is not required, depending on the situation, necessary documentation need to be submitted. So environmental license and permit, or environmental license and permit is not required, letter from Provincial Directorate of Ministry of Environment and Urbanization, if applicable. And commitment letter of the applicant to provide environmental and social risk assessment documents to fill out environmental and social assessment questionnaire. So please look at the application documents of the application guideline. So how to make an application, how to apply. So I previously indicated that, but the sub-grant application form and business plan and its annexes and all supported documents must only be submitted electronically. So all documents are made available both in Turkish and English. So And there is also some documents which are available in Arabic for information only. So you can see the başvuru.kayis.org. Please follow the guidance and further explanations for the application process. In case of any conflict between Turkish and English documents, the English sub-grant application guideline and its annexes will be binding. Deadline for submission of applications, 28th of February 2020, 17. So please remember the system can be overloaded towards the deadline. So it is recommended to upload your application before the last hours because there might be so many applications and there might be an overload. So please remember that system can be overloaded and do not wait until the last minute. No exceptions to the deadline will be accepted even if the delay is caused by technical glitches. So questions may be sent by email no later than 20 days before the deadline for the call for proposals to the email address below. And you can see the email address kayis@kalkınma.com.tr. Contracting authority has no obligation to provide clarifications to questions received after this date. And clarifications to questions will be given no later than 10 days before the deadline for call for proposals. And we announced the frequently asked questions and replies have been provided. And also in those areas that are mostly inquired about, we provided the necessary explanation and the replies to the questions have already been put on the website, but some questions can be really very specific about the general eligibility of the applicant or about the general eligibility within the project. But we are not providing any opinion or we are not providing any individual advice on the application. So I previously mentioned that regarding the frequently asked questions, but from time to time, there are some updates concerning the frequently asked questions and their answers. So please follow our website for most up-to-date replies. So evaluation and selection of applications. I would like to talk about the steps of evaluation stage. There are 4 steps. The first step is administrative and eligibility check. So for all applications submitted via KAIS platform, an administrative check will be conducted. Compliance with the eligibility criteria set out in section 2 and administrative aspects will be checked for all applications. Step 2. So once step 1 is passed, there will be step 2. Step 2 is technical and financial evaluation. The technical and financial evaluation process will be carried out by independent assessors under the supervision of the bank, the Development Investment Bank of Turkey. Sub-projects proposals are evaluated objectively in terms of technical and financial qualifications in line with the evaluation criteria as shown in the evaluation grid. Applications that receive sufficient score at this stage will proceed to grant evaluation committee and budget revision stages. Step 3, environmental and social assessment. So I talked about environmental and social criteria. So there will be environmental and social assessment according to the criteria. All provisionally selected and reserved list of proposals receiving the first no objection from the World Bank will be assessed by environmental and social assessors with respect to compliance with environmental and social framework of World Bank and TKYB. And the last step, step 4, is notification of the contracting authority's decision. So this is going to be about notification of the results after the 3 stages. So the applicants will be informed in writing of the contracting authority's decision concerning their application. If rejected, the reasons for the negative decision will also be notified. And also there will be a sub-grant contract signing with those that have passed all 4 steps. So it is really important to talk about technical and financial evaluation. This is the most important stage, and I would like to elaborate on this. There are 5 different important items: relevance, financial operational capacity, methodology, formal employment creation, cost effectiveness, and sustainability. You can see the maximum scores and the rates provided to them, and you can see the clarifications, and the methodology is the most important section, which I'm going to further elaborate in the next section. So the methodology will be evaluated on the 4 sub items. So evaluation of the employment plan will be taken into consideration. And we are going to look at, of course, 3.1, how consistent is the overall design of the sub-project? Are the activities feasible and consistent with the objectives and expected results? 3.2, the question will be, does the proposal include additional refugee employment? And percentage of additional refugee employment, the percentage will be taken into consideration. Additional refugee employment divided by total additional employment multiplied by 100. So there will be less than or equal to 10% will be weak, less than or equal to 30% will be enough, less than 50% will be good. So the same applies to the female employees' employment. Does the proposal include additional employment of any female employees? So there will be also percentages such as 10%, 30%, 50%, or more than 50%. So there will be a scale according to the formula described on this slide. Under 3.4, this will lead to 25 points ultimately. The question will be, does the proposal include sufficient additional registered employment? So of course, these will vary according to the scale of the enterprise, scale of the business. Small, 6.25 points for each additional employment, full points for 4 additional employment. Medium, 1.5625 points for each additional employment, full points for 16 additional employment, and for large, full points for 40 additional employments, and 0.6250 points for each additional employment. So you can see there is a threshold value which is 65 points, and at this point, of course, 30, 25, I can't remember exactly, the speaker says. There are some certain thresholds, and depending on the relevant thresholds, there will be a requirement to pass those thresholds depending on the type of the company. So I would like to also talk about the indicative timetable, deadline for requesting any clarifications from the contracting authority, the indicative date and time. You can see the deadline of the submission of applications, 28th of February, 5 p.m. For administrative eligibility check, you can see the indicative deadline for technical financial evaluation, 15th of May 2022, environmental social assessment, 15th of July 2022, notification of decision of awarding is the 1st of August 2022, and subgrant contract signature, 15th of September 2022. So these can be updated. Please check our website for the updates. So as I said, these are indicative timetables, so these are provisional dates. So these are the key features of the grant program. So you can see the title of the program, program reference number. After the cover page of our application guidelines, you can see the key features of the grant program. So I try to include that in my slides as well in order to provide a better picture. Thank you very much for your kind attention. It has been a tiresome presentation and it has been rather long, but I hope it has been useful. So I can talk about the website. Ayşegül Hanım, may I also show the website? Yes, please, Eren, show the website and then we'll take the questions. I hope you can see my screen with the website on. Here you can see formal employment creation project has 3 components underlined by Nazanım in the beginning of the presentation. You can see a tab which provides general information about the project. So here it talks about EU facility for refugees in Turkey, the FRIT program, and the project provinces in which the project will be implemented. So some general information about the project is made available in this tab. So there are some project documents which will be used during project implementation. So these will be followed, and of course, references required to these documents during project implementation. So this tab includes project documents. This is the call for proposals. So this is the most important part. When you click on that, you can see the call for proposals. The general rules are also indicated here. And of course, the most important is the application guideline and also documents of application. So you can download the application guideline. This is one of the binding documents that we have. And here you can see if there is a correction or there is a revision in the application guideline. We just cross it out and it's indicated in red. It used to be the deadline for submission used to be 2nd of February 2022, but it has been postponed to 28. So we try to underline that and show it in red. When there's an update, it's crossed and showed in red. So please take this into consideration, and you can see the information to be filled out. And this is also similar to the forms that we showed. And by looking at here, you can understand what you have to fill in when you log into the platform. There are supporting documents, there are templates for the supporting documents, and they are in Word format. So you can download them through the platform in Word format. So this is the project timeline. I talked about the project timeline. So if there are any updates or changes, which might be the case, you can see them here. The frequently asked questions, you can see that here are frequently asked questions and announcements. Please follow the announcements, because there are important announcements. When there are major changes, you will have to be notified about them. So you can just look at this part of the website. So there are also addendum, some important notices concerning the timeline and the meetings. And so this is about the application when you say apply. So this is the English version of the website, and the same things, the same content are also made available in English. Thank you. Can you please show the Arabic version, Eren? Can you please show the Arabic version of the website? So this is application form and business plan in Arabic, and application guideline for grant program, which is also in Arabic. And these are translated versions of these documents, and you can download them by clicking on download. Thank you very much, Eren. So let's have the website on the screen, and we can take and answer the questions while we see the website on the screen. And whenever necessary, we can also provide explanations and clarifications and use the website for reference. Distinguished participants, we would like to thank you very much for the questions. We get a lot of questions, and we will try to answer all the questions, but there are a lot of questions, so we may not have enough time. So we are going to compile those questions which are asked more frequently. So first and foremost, regarding the program in general, it seems that there are a lot of details, but the program priorities are the most important. So Turkish nationals and refugees under temporary and international protection. And also the most important second thing, the second priority is creating employment for women. So we are talking about two priorities. So we would like our applicants to continue their activities, which are continuous. We can see that the companies who are applying already have continuous business activities, but the creation of employment depends on the employment plans, and employment plans will be based on their activities, and the reasons, the justifications will be provided accordingly. The purpose of this program will provide us answers about what type of a company it is, what is the scale of the company. Of course, we are going to receive some other detailed information, but what is the company doing? What does it want to do? Why does it need this new jobs, new employment? So we will try to objectively evaluate accordingly. As an underline, this is a call for proposals, but it seems that there are three calls. So small companies, medium companies, and large-scale companies will be evaluated among their categories, and the limits are set accordingly, according to their sizes. Of course, there are going to be different needs, and there are going to be different numbers of new employment created. Some of the questions are related to the application guideline. For instance, who can benefit from the grant program? In section 2 of the application guideline, you can find the answer. So it has to be a company, it has to have a legal entity, and so we are looking for companies that are registered in the Trade Gazette. So it can be a corporate company, a limited liability company. So there are a lot of companies which are limited liability companies, and also in the other formats. What is the maximum limit for the grant support? Depending on the size, there are three groups, so it varies between 15,000 euros for large-scale enterprises. It is 300,000 euros, so it varies. So, of course, eligible costs will be taken into consideration, and the grant will be from 50% to 70% of the eligible costs of the company. If you have a modernization investment that you have planned, maybe you have already made some planning and you're going to invest from your equity, and the grant can help you in the employment aspect. As you already know, 70% of the eligibility cost has to be the employment cost, and that is the gross cost of the employer. Do not immediately think only about the premiums of the employees. So consider the total costs and make your budget accordingly. The budget, in fact, is intensively focusing on employment. So both refugees and Turkish nationals, we are expecting new employment from these groups. Regarding 50%, we underline 50%, but we do not want to intervene with your business plan. So for program priority Turkish nationals and also refugees, we are focusing on the program priorities. And so those who are not refugees, those who are not Turkish nationals, will not be one of the priorities. So the applications will be evaluated according to the program priorities. So please take the two priorities into consideration. So is it compulsory to have refugee employment and female employment is another question. Depending on the activity, maybe female employment is not appropriate for your area of activity, but we would like to see that because it is one of our priorities in the program. Therefore, both refugee employment and female employment are important because these are the priorities. These are important features of the projects for evaluation. Please pay attention to these program priorities. Another question is related to when you say refugees, is it only Syrians under temporary protection? We are talking about SUTP, yes, and also there might be other country nationals under temporary protection and those under international protection as well. In Turkey, when we talk about employment, people may have a residence permit or work permit. So those foreigners who are not refugees cannot be considered as refugees because they may have received a work permit based on the procedures set forth by the DG International Labor Force of the Ministry of Labor. And there are some different procedures. Under the scope of this project, we are talking about Syrians under temporary protection and other nationals under temporary protection, those Iraqis, Afghani refugees, and also temporary protection and international protection are the key criteria. What are the qualifications of the people to be employed? There are no restrictions about that. That will be according to the need of the company. Maybe you need engineers. Maybe you need someone to work at the production line. Maybe some master workers, or you need some machinery operators, or you are in another service sector. You need someone for the sales and the marketing or for distribution. That depends on your business plan and your needs and your program and your activities as a business. Another question concerns, as far as I can see, what should be the size of the applicant company. There are some number of employees, and we take those numbers into consideration. The number which is applicable during your application will be taken into consideration. Are you going to consider average numbers? No, we are going to look at the number of employees, up to date number of employees at the time of the application. 140 9, 50, 250, and 249, 250, and above. So these are the three categories. And of course, we will have to take those divisions into consideration according to the current number of employees during the time of the application. These are the questions I have seen. Another thing, environmental and social assessment. We talked about it during the project presentation. So World Bank has some standards for environmental and social standards, and also our bank has social governance framework, and these will be taken into consideration under the scope of this project. For environmental and social risk category, middle and high risk categories will not be considered as eligible activities as indicated in the presentation. B minus, so A, B minus, C, it goes like that, and then the most risky. So the highest risky sectors will not be funded, will not be supported financially under the scope of this project. So of course, I mean, those who function in those sectors already know that there are lots of environmental and social risks and environmental impact assessment report requirements. So those high risk sectors will not be eligible for application, but B minus and C categories cover a lot of sectors, service sectors and other sectors. So I don't think this will be a major restriction for the applications. So I would like to leave the rest of the questions to Eren Bey, and I will try to divide the answers to be provided to the questions. So if you have any hesitations, we can continue. I can take the floor again. Floor is yours, Eren Bey. So there was a question about the capacity report. I mentioned that during the presentation. Capacity report may not be required for all the companies. Please check the relevant website and check the legislation to see whether you have that requirement. In the relevant legislation, you can see the details for which companies should provide a capacity report. If you don't have that registration, if you don't have that requirement, then you can just upload an empty document just saying that we have no requirement for capacity report submission. So when the newly employed staff leaves during the time of the project, so if they leave, then you have to replace them. You have to recruit new personnel. In the employment plan that you're going to submit, there will be some details, and during the project implementation, we expect compliance with what is indicated in the plan provided for the implementation period. So the payments and also the merits will be calculated accordingly. When there is an application submitted, can we make changes on the platform on an application that has been filled out and completed already? So you cannot make any changes on the application once they are uploaded. If you want to introduce changes on your application, then you will have to provide a petition. So you will have to submit a petition using the necessary address so that your current application will be cancelled, and then you are going to, as an applicant, will make another application using the website. Environmental social assessment documents, are they compulsory? So in the application guideline, you can see the necessary information.
Can we buy machinery and equipment? We have, according to our limits and rates of support, you can find how much budget can be supported in line with the relevant amount. Machinery and equipment items can be considered as eligible costs. At a government platform, the barcoded documents, are they eligible? Yes, they are valid, and for tax debts and also the social security debts. We mentioned in our presentation, if a company restructured those debts, they should submit the supporting documents showing that they restructured their tax debts. And change of type of the company in the application criteria, starting at least 2 years before 17th of December 2021, the company must have been established. For that reason, this does not cover the change of the form of the company or type of the company. Nazan'ım, we can hand over to you. Before you, Nazanım, I just would like to emphasize one thing. At KOİ's platform, you can save your applications in draft form. As long as the application process is open, you can revise your application. As soon as you complete your application and submit it, then your application will be evaluated, will be admitted and evaluated. We accept you submitted your application. After that, you cannot change the application, but if there is a mistake that you have made in your application, then you have to consult to us and you have to apply it to us. Over to you, Nazlı Hanım.
Sorulara devam ediyorum.
I will continue with the questions regarding payments. In the project preparation, the Euro-Turkish lira foreign exchange rate, if it changes throughout the project, will the project budget be updated, unchanged? We can talk about reimbursement later, but briefly I can say that the project reimbursement type grant amounts will be paid in euros, and the losses due to the exchange rate will not be considered as eligible costs, therefore they will not be revised. The payments or reimbursements we will be making to the beneficiaries will be limited to the actual costs and will be in euros. Under the project, what kind of procurement rules will be applicable? Again, in the application guidelines, you can find details. I'll refer to it. In the chapter 5 of our guideline, you can find the implementation conditions and requirements. You can have access to that World Bank procurement regulations on our website. Article 6.46 is the direct reference I can give you. This is going to be subject to commercial activities. From the relevant part of our guidelines, you can find the further information. Regarding application, there is another question. If in the project application there are multiple phone numbers, can we log into the KOİ's platform? In your applications on KOİ's, for each project, you should register just one phone number. Another question, we hear that question a lot. For the employment of foreign employees, is there any legal limitation like 10% of the Turkish national employees according to our legislation? You should be bound by the legislation, the rights indicated in the legislation, but as you know, as regards the work permit, the Ministry of Labour and Social Security, Director General for International Labour Force is responsible, and their consideration will be taken as the basis for our project. Another question regarding employment of refugees. What is the minimum wage to be given to the refugees to be employed? Under our formal employment creation project, for the additional employment we will support, they should be formal, they should be registered, and for Turkish nationals and refugees, we do not make any discrimination. Within the legal limits applicable, the wage will be set. That's how I can answer this question. Regarding audit reports, there is another question. For 2019-2021, independent, up-to-date audit report, should it be submitted for each company? For the companies where independent audit is compulsory, independent audit report must be submitted. But if you're not bound by independent audit, you can submit your documents which are certified by the certified accountant. After the submission of the proposal of the project, till the announcement of the project award, if the employment rate of the company decreases, what would be the implication? This is also a very frequent question, that when the evaluation process is long, such situations may occur in these companies, and the applicant, depending on the number of the employees of the applicant, we make a certain classification. On the date of the application, the number of the employees are indicated in the withholding tax and social security statement, and the current social security statements are taken into consideration, which you already submit with your application. And also, depending on the size of the company, maximum and minimum grant amounts are designated according to the number of the employees that were available on the date of application. And for the companies in the organized industrial zones and techno cities, would you request us to submit the activity certificates? Although they are located in these organized industrial zones or techno cities, they need to get licensed to operate and activity certificate. If for any reason they have a certain exemption as underlined by Arande previously, that exemption certificate can be submitted, or they can submit a document or a letter stating that they started that process of exemption. They can upload the document into our system or platform. Environmental and at the stage of the environmental and social evaluation, that document, that certificate is necessary. Therefore, you should not miss it or skip it. Another question is about inquiry document for exclusion list. How can we have access to that document? This is among the supporting documents. From turkey.gov.tr, you can get this document from that platform or from ECAP, from the links on ECAP. Another question: can we benefit from grants and lending under this project? As we underlined in our project presentation, if you apply for grants, you must not get any benefit from the lending components of formal employment creation projects. From both grant and lending components, you cannot use them at the same time. Another question is, with the same project, is it possible to benefit from different grant programs or grant schemes? I think for a budget item, can we benefit from different grant schemes? I think this must be the question. In our application guideline, you can find further information in ineligible costs chapter. If you are benefiting from European Union grant scheme or another grant scheme, those costs that are financed under different grant schemes are ineligible costs in our project. I mean, you should be supported by just one program. So in your application to our project, the budget item that you request should not be supported by other grant schemes. This is the condition for you to benefit from our grant program. Thank you. And now there are a few more questions. We will try to answer those questions. For example, there is a question: software programs are sold on a leasing basis. So is leasing, software leasing, considered as eligible costs? Yeah, if you're going to use them for your projects, you can include them. Leasing costs will be eligible costs because this is software. I mean, other leasing costs are ineligible costs, but software is necessary for the implementation of the activity. For that reason, software leasing will be included. And if the employees will get occupational and professional training outside, will it be considered as eligible costs? With this opportunity on this occasion, I'd like to talk about the component 3 of our project. When you become eligible for a grant program, for the new employees for your company, technical assistance activities to be financed by our bank will be provided for training of the new employees. In line with the needs of the companies, we will organize and deliver these training courses. For that reason, you can get a grant and also technical assistance from these two components of this project. And also for the training needs of the employees, well, they can be considered as eligible costs, but of course it depends on the vocational training courses and what extent it is necessary to implement that activity. So this may lead to some degree of hesitation. For that reason, it should be reconsidered. If you want to specifically indicate it, you need to indicate the justification for that very clearly. Regarding livestock, there is a question. Yeah, primary agricultural activities unfortunately are excluded from the grant program of this project. Similarly, livestock sector or primary agricultural or a livestock activity will not be eligible. Regarding the start of the cost, our plan is that we will sign the grant contracts by September, and first reimbursements, preliminary reimbursements will be made for eligible costs. So costs should be the actual cost after that contract is signed. In the meantime, those costs before the signing of the contract will not be considered as eligible costs. You should make your plans accordingly. Yeah, I mean, just relying on the grant or on the just assuming that your costs will be covered by the grant before the signing of the contract, you should not make any expenditures. Between the headquarters of the company and also the province where the employment will be created are different. If both provinces are within 24 provinces, there will not be any problem. But the province where the employment will be created is essential. For example, your HQ may be in Istanbul, but you are carrying out your activity in Diyarbakir and you are creating employment in Diyarbakir. We will take Diyarbakir into consideration, and then you will become eligible as an applicant. But your headquarters may be in Ankara, but you have an activity in another province than the selected 24 provinces, that activity cannot be supported under this project, but just vice versa may be eligible. For example, your company may be established in Trabzon, but in Ankara or Gaziantep, you are investing and you are creating employment in those 24 selected provinces, they will be eligible. Defense industry, on condition that you are not manufacturing weapons, will it be eligible? We have a list of exclusion lists. You should have a look at that list. Actually, defense industry is not funded by the World Bank and our bank. There may be some differences in the details, but we need to examine it, we need to see it. So before you apply, you should have a look at that list in details. So the loan without interest rate from COSGAP, is it covered by this project? In the funding of the project proposal you submit to us, the applicant can be considered as co-funder, but under FRIT, it should not be a loan under FRIT, because for the same activity, for the same project, it means that you will use two sources under FRIT. This will not be eligible, but you can, of course, use different sources, other funding sources. For the activity of the company, it's quite natural. If the company is not a producer or manufacturer, is it a barrier before becoming an applicant? No, it is not a barrier, but you may be providing a service, or you may have different activities, so you can still apply. Regarding evaluation, there are some questions. External experts will make the evaluation, because the question was whether the evaluation will be performed by our own experts at the bank or external experts, but external experts will make the evaluation. There are certain criteria, those who are familiar with the grant assistance and especially the European Union financial assistance experts, competent external experts who are given the task of making this evaluation, and we will get support of the external experts. But of course, this will be under very strict procedure. We have high standard for the elaborated objective evaluation of the project proposals and project applications. Certificate to open a business or start a business and license to operate. This is a legal requirement as per the applicable legislation, but the companies may not have these all these certificates, or you may be in this process, but you can just show us your application for the license to operate, and if you can just show that document, we will accept those documents as well. What else do we have? Missing document, will it be a reason for disqualification? The supporting documents and also the documents for which the templates we indicate on the platform should be completed. Will it be a reason for disqualification? We will do our best not to do so because of the supporting documents. We don't want to disqualify a very good project just because of the missing documents, but please try to complete your documents and application, although the number of documents seems to vary high, but this is the same documents required in this grant program or assistance program. We don't ask for more. So can public institutions participate? No, unfortunately, because this project aims at the completely privately owned companies. Yeah, there are some other questions about the application, such as license to operate. These are the ones I could see so far. I think we could answer a lot of questions. Yeah, there are a lot of questions, To what extent we can answer all of them, but based on the presentations that we delivered, details of which you can find in our application guidelines in the frequently asked questions at KAY's website, you can find the answers. For your companies, these may seem to be specific questions, but you can find the answers in these documents. We will try to pick up some questions. Sometimes we get some criticism from you saying that you asked questions, but you could not get your answers. But some of the questions are not answered because they were answered previously. There are hundreds of questions. We will review them again. Of course, every company just posts their question depending on their own situation, but we will try to get back to you if your question was unanswered in this session. For example, there is another question. I'll ask a few more questions to you. I don't want to take much of your time, but maybe we can continue for another 5 to 10 minutes. For example, if there may be 2 social security institution registration numbers, one in construction, the other one is in the automotive sector. Are we going to take into consideration the total number of the employees in both registration numbers, or will each of these registration numbers be considered as one company? Yeah, we will consider it as one company. Of course, a tax registration number is important. One company may have different activities. The applicant will be just one company for us. We will take that into consideration. Will value-added tax exemption be valid for equipment and machinery procurement? Right. Of course, while drafting and preparing your sub-project, you have to indicate your proposal excluding VAT. Of course, through grants, VAT cannot be subsidized, but of course they can apply to the revenue administration to get an exemption for VAT. So in joint companies with multiple shareholders, when we make an inquiry with the company registration number, we can't see any result. Well, does it mean that they are not prohibited? We are going to inquire each partner one by one. Of course, at the application stage, we will just review the institutions ECOP list and exclusion list will be the guide for us. There are a lot of questions about IT and software. This was already elaborated in details, and in the presentation, eligible and illegible costs were presented. If already the companies do not have any employees, can they still participate? But 0 employee, no, not accepted. Unfortunately, we receive lots of questions, so they should have employees already. I mean, they should have a record or a history of activity or history of employment. Maybe regarding reimbursement, I just would like to make a brief information because there are lots of questions about reimbursement. how they are going to be converted, partial reimbursement or total reimbursement. Maybe we can elaborate on these questions. So sub-project budget should be drafted in euros and should be submitted in euros, and reimbursements will be made in euros by the bank. And the first reimbursement will be made a 10% advance payment or down payment after the contract is signed. In 1 month, we will make a monitoring visit and 10% will be reimbursed. After the first preliminary reimbursement, 40% in 6 months and 40% in the next 6 months, and the last 10% will be paid in the last part. And so we are going to check the actual costs after the initial payment of 10%, after employment is completed, the cost, payments paid, and other project expenditures, actual costs will be compared, and then the reimbursement will be made according to the actual costs. At the date of the payment and at the date of expenditure, the exchange rate of euro will be taken into consideration. Info euro is not going to be used. Sometimes it is used in the other European Union funded projects because the actual exchange rate on the date of the expenditure will be taken into consideration. If you don't want you to have a loss in the exchange rate conversion, I'm not in favor of that. The expenditures mostly will be in Turkish lira because the employment costs and expenses are in Turkish lira. But as I said before, on the day of the payment, expenditures, the exchange rate will be taken into consideration, both from the grant program for employment and also for co-funding. The costs will be taken into consideration, evaluated, and then a reimbursement or payment will be made, and also expenditure verification or confirmation will be done, and then the payment will be made. So this is our payment plan. So 18 months is a very long process. There is a confusion about 18 to 21 months. To avoid the confusion, we should highlight that after a while or at certain point in time, they may leave the job and they will need some time to replace them, and they need new employees. That's why we have an additional 3 months. For 18 months, they should have formal employment in 21 months. Of course, the existing employment is expected to be preserved in the meantime, because while we expect these companies to have additional employment while preserving the existing employment, of course, it is quite ordinary that there may be ups and downs in the meantime, but of course, it has to be at a certain reasonable level, and there needs to be a justification for that. We are going to make our evaluations and considerations accordingly. So I think there is a confusion. The responsible person for the company, does he or she have to be Turkish national? No, they don't have to be Turkish nationals. I mean, they should be registered in Turkey. I mean, the owners do not have to necessarily be Turkish original. Syrian entrepreneurs and other investors, other national investors can be applicants. Every company registered legally in Turkey and have activity in 24 provinces can apply. There is another question. Maybe in our documents there was a minor error from the date of application. There is an expression that activity certificate that is issued maximum 3 months before. I think in one page we said maximum, in one part we said minimum 3 months. We corrected it actually. We published it. Actually, it was corrected and published. I think it was by mistake, and we corrected it. And it is indicated. It is maximum 3 months. So it must be up to date. It must be the most recent one. Most recent to the date of application. That's what we prefer. I'm not reading very specific questions. regarding the specific cases of the companies. There are some questions, but all of them were provided as information. There are repeated questions. That's why I don't want to get into details of those questions. I think we can finalize now. Of course, all these questions that we received here will be reviewed, and if your questions were not answered here in this Q&A part and also in the presentation, in the next information session or sessions, we are going to make a presentation that will cover your answers to your questions. For that reason, if you want to get further information, if you still have some question marks requiring clarification now, we will be welcoming you to the other following and future information sessions, because we are going to make the same presentation, but we will add these questions, minor questions. And you can send your questions to kayis@kalkınma.gov.tr for your questions. Thank you very much for your participation, for your attendance, and hope to see you in other series of information sessions. Thank you very much. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, and we're expecting your applications. Yeah, we're expecting your applications in the meantime. Thank you very much. Thanks a lot.